start by giving our gratitude and appreciation to Namibia House, to the Namibian Pavilion, for making this valuable discussion possible. And it will be powered by different representations from different countries and organizations. So thank you very much for your attendance as well. So we are slowly starting our discussion, and basically we will be addressing the needs of carbon market readiness in African continent by hearing the voices, the opinions from different experts representing valuable organizations, including International Carbon Registry, which is a voluntary carbon market standard that has been boomed in the last 2 years, let's say, and its CEO, its co-CEO, Gudmundur Sigbergsson, will be with us today to address the VCM perspective of carbon market readiness in Africa. And then we will be, but this is not an alignment, but we will be also welcoming Sherry Ombia, representing Perspectives Climate Group, to power the event with a perspective of Article 6.2 readiness, and finally implementation and its potential implications in Africa. And also we have Pedro Venzo, representing International Emission Trading Association, to correlate our discussion, to design our discussion around Article 6.2 readiness. So I would like to start with my intro presentation, representing the company called Climate Balanced. I'm working as Chief Executive Officer in this company that has been also co-founded by me. So on behalf of our company, our organization, we would like to again share our gratitude and appreciation for both you and for both our speakers that makes today's event possible. So Climate Balanced is a climate change advisory body who is utilizing environmental markets and capacity building tools to serve its footprint in terms of decarbonization services, either in compliance or voluntary mechanisms. And why we have decided to hold this event as part of Namibia House schedule. The main reason behind our motivation points out to a dilemma that has been unfortunately raised by the COPs in the history. So in this chart you can see that many COPs have been completed with a stable increasing trend in the global CO2 equivalent concentration in the atmosphere. So we have already put more two COPs in this chart. I think that this chart should be also revised. So unfortunately the COPs have not served for the purpose, and we are expecting too much. There are several agenda points, and as a carbon market potential, I was sharing a motto that Dubai, give my Article 6 please. So this is why we have drafted our discussion as part of today's side event around carbon market readiness in Africa. So basically, carbon market readiness will be correlated the needs behind the evolution from Kyoto Protocol to Paris Agreement. So we have seen what carbon markets were by the outcomes of Kyoto Protocol many years ago, and to be honest, and all of us can easily address that. The design has not been conducted very well at that time by putting responsibilities only on developed nations. But it seems that we need all parties to, rise this collective action together, including carbon market implementation as well. So when you address the coverage, the content of Article 6 of Paris Agreement, you can see that each party, each UN party might be in a need of carbon market implementation in their border as of today. And the last two COPs had a extended coverage for seeing this happening in an efficient manner, but we are yet to see a working, globally accepted and brilliant infrastructure for having a real readiness and implementation features. So this is why we are going to discuss the readiness itself, but with a focus of African reality, African continent reality. So I just don't want to steal too much of our speakers' time with the intro, because they will be giving the real discussions. So we will be starting by Pedro Venzon to hear his opinions, his analysis on the Article 6.2 readiness implementation, both globally and in means of African region. So Pedro, welcome. The floor is yours.
So my name is Pedro Venzon. I'm International Policy Advisor at AITA. Thank you all for your attention as well. So for those that don't know AITA, AITA is a non-profit group. It's a private sector group focused on promoting carbon markets. So our members involve the different sectors that are engaged in carbon markets. So we have members from all the geographies and also all parts of carbon markets, and we try to use the expertise of these members to inform policies, to develop thought leadership, and also share knowledge and best practices around the world. And one of our key initiatives is the BPMI, which is our capacity building program. And it's focused not only on Article 6, but also on the interplay of markets. And I think this is a really important component nowadays when it comes to readiness of countries to engage with carbon markets, because we cannot think about Article 6 only as an individual component of this whole ecosystem. I think it's very important to think the voluntary carbon market, Article 6, and eventually carbon price instruments that are being developed domestically. So our capacity building program has this as the main goal to discuss this possibility of countries engaging with all these markets, and of course there is no one solution fits all, and that's the most complex aspect, because depending on each country the solution will be different. And when it comes to Africa, we are developing a specific program in West African countries. So we are focusing on the West African countries. We had a workshop in September, a 3-day workshop there, trying to connect international private sector actors engaged in carbon markets with the local private sector, helping the local private sector engage with Article 6 and eventually build the capacity for them to engage with these markets more deeply. Also, these discussions, our aim is to inform the policy, so we invited governments to be there and to listen what were the bottlenecks that the private sector was facing to engage more deeply with these markets. Talking about Africa more broadly, Africa is one of the continents that are most engaged when it comes to Article 6. We have a lot of countries already establishing agreements and MOUs. So the countries in Africa, they are really interested in understanding more how they could be, how they could generate credits that would be considered for Article 6 transactions and eventually authorize it and become ITMOs. We have the examples, for example, of Senegal, Kenya, Ghana, with agreements with countries like Japan, also Switzerland, Sweden, and I think what's important here is also to understand that depending on the country that you are engaging, this cooperative approach will be different, and this represents also a challenge for the host country to engage, because for example, if you have an agreement like Senegal with Japan, the approach of Japan is completely different from the approach of Switzerland. So it needs also to have like all the infrastructure and the institutional arrangements necessary to basically deal with both approaches in the same way. So this is something that we discuss with countries. We try to also like show to them how the private sector can play a role there, but it's not an easy process. And I think what is important here is also to consider that although 80%, this is not only in Africa but also like worldwide, although 80% of the NDCs consider the use of carbon markets or international support to achieve their climate commitments, and in Africa it's even more, close to 100% of the countries. Only a few countries have already like the capability to basically engage with these markets. So the World Bank is working under the PMI, the Partnership for Market Implementation, to provide capacity building for some countries in Africa, more specifically Botswana, Guinea, Senegal, and also in a readiness stage, so in a stage where the countries already have some awareness about markets and they are already developing some structures. But also the World Bank is engaging with, in a lower degree, with Ghana, Rwanda, Uganda, Kenya, and Nigeria. So these are countries that are in a different degree of engagement, but the World Bank is also trying to promote. But as I mentioned, what we try with the BPMI, which is basically the same thing that the Partnership for Market Implementation, but with this D at the beginning, symbolizing the business community. So what we try is like complement this World Bank's program by bringing like the business perspective to these countries. So as I mentioned, we worked with African countries this year. Next year, we are planning to work with East African countries. And also other organizations such as GGGI and development agents are also like really engaged trying to promote this readiness. Although we are still far away from having like a deep knowledge about Article 6 and how this could play a role, considering all the interplay between markets in these countries, we have really good examples that can serve as reference for other countries to start their journey in this process. I think one of the key examples that is important to highlight here is the Ghana framework on carbon markets, on international carbon markets. They consider this interplay between markets. They are not only discussing Article 6, they are also considering like how they plan to engage with the voluntary carbon markets. They consider the type of eligible activities in each one of these markets, how they would be the processes and the sequencing of these to receive the authorizations. Also the NDC in Ghana already consider conditional and unconditional sectors, so it facilitates for the private sector to identify what would be the opportunities for them to engage. And I think this is a really good example that could set the reference for also like other countries to engage more deeply. But maybe one of the key aspects of all this readiness part is basically to develop the infrastructure, and not only like the technological infrastructure, but also like the organizational infrastructure. So, for example, in Ghana, you have all these different government bodies where each body would be responsible for one part of this system, providing checks and balance also like for this engagement. So you have like a body to oversee the implementation of this engagement, also to authorize these units, another body that would be responsible for implement the technical requirements, you have a secretariat to deal with the administrative support, and also like you have support bodies to deal with technical aspects and facilitate this process of authorization. Tanzania is another example, another interesting example. Is a different state of development, but they are already also discussing how they can structure this engagement with markets, and also like discussing what would be the responsibility of each body in the government. A different aspect about Tanzania is that they already defined the taxes that would be that would be applied to the transaction of credits, and also what would be the financial allocation of the revenues received by these taxes. So I think it's important to have this broad overview and to understand this broad context to not only for the private sector but also for governments to understand that a carbon market strategy is key to attract private investments and to facilitate this process of engagement in Article 6. We see the voluntary carbon market as a step in this process. When it comes to carbon price instruments, the African countries are maybe facing conditions that make it a bit more challenging for them to implement. So our view is basically that this journey will be much based on voluntary carbon market and eventually building the capacity for them to gradually engage with Article 6 and start authorizing units, as Ghana is already doing. Tanzania is already starting the process also. So with this, I would like to conclude my intervention, but I'm happy to hear also your thoughts and discuss further these issues.
Good afternoon, my name is Sherry Okoya. I work as a consultant in Perspectives. Perspectives is an international advisory firm. We've been working in the area of international climate policy for over 20 years now, starting from the pre-development mechanism for the Kyoto Protocol. So our work with carbon markets extends again 20 years, supporting on issues related to development of methodologies. And one of the key issues we try to push for within the carbon markets is environmental integrity, just to ensure that we can deliver the best outcomes for all countries. So I'll be speaking about Article 6.4 in particular, but I'll just start with giving an overview of what exactly readiness means, and then what opportunities exist in the region, what achievements have occurred so far and have reached private sector, as well as just to see what work we're doing in West Africa. So Perspectives is a technical partner for the Western African Alliance on Carbon Markets and Climate Finance, as well as the Eastern African Alliance, and there we try to support capacity building and technical assistance and provide technical assistance as well for countries. Sorry about that. Yes, so basically Article 6.4 readiness, or Article 6 readiness in general, or carbon market readiness in the context of the title of the session, refers to preparing countries to comply with the participation requirements of Article 6. In this regard, we are talking about setting up for instance, the strategic considerations that they require for the institutions, such as the Article 6 governance bodies, which will facilitate decision-making for national interest in carbon markets. So far, in West Africa, we can see, or in Africa in general, we can see that they're already starting to engage with Article 6, so they are early movers. In this regard, as has already been pointed out by Pedro, and there's a high awareness of the carbon market opportunities. And there's a high awareness of what Article 6 can provide. For instance, we have Burkina Faso, which is engaging in the standard permitting framework under the World Bank. As Pedro has already highlighted, Senegal is moving forward with developing its Article 6 strategy, as well as various cooperation with governments such as the government of Switzerland and Japan. the government of Switzerland and Japan under the joint crediting mechanism. One thing that's important to consider is the rules of Article 6 are still evolving. So even if a lot of progress is starting to occur, there's not much clarity yet on a few issues. So for instance, we're waiting for the Sustainable Development Tool, which would be able to assist countries to understand what are the sustainable development benefits they could get from Article 6, as well as the supervisory body which governs the development of the rules on Article 6, helping to understand what methodologies can be used, are yet to be decided on. So countries are in the meantime using the clean development mechanism methodologies just to prepare for how they will transition to Article 6. So far, there's clarity that there's a high potential for Article 6, but as I said, that countries have to make strategic considerations for how they will really benefit from the carbon markets. In this way, they need to carefully think about what kind of activities they want to transfer from what they had in the under the clean development mechanism that would really enable them to meet their targets under the NDCs. So as Pedro highlighted, that now a critical connection between Article 6 and the wider climate policy framework is that countries can use the carbon markets to meet their emission reduction targets under the Paris Agreement. So here we can see that there are some projects that already exist within Western Africa as an example that are crucial in terms of helping to kickstart the Article 6.4 movement, and the countries are at various stages in terms of forging forward their activities towards Article 6 engagement. And in Burkina Faso, for instance, they're receiving a few challenges still remain, and one of them is related to capacity building. In Burkina Faso, for instance, they are receiving support from the gold standard. In Cote d'Ivoire, we see that they have already developed their Article 6 strategy, and we work with them through the Western African Alliance to build their capacity. We do this primarily by working on workshops with the Article 6 working group. In Senegal, this has already been discussed, so I'll not spend time on it, as well as in Ghana. And as also Pedro mentioned, we see that, of course, there is a strong role for private sector to engage in the carbon markets. Part of it is through project origination. And as I said, the rules are evolving, and one of the things that countries now need to make sure they do is already in 3 weeks to start agreeing on the activities that can move from the CDM into Article 6. And a key issue or challenge is there's a general lack of awareness, and while Article 6 has now created an opportunity for host country governments to propel and move action forward, they really need to make sure that they can raise awareness for project developers to not miss this opportunity. So within the Western African Alliance, we have been working a lot with countries, for instance, here to bring various types of stakeholders together to understand what are some of the opportunities they can harness from the carbon markets. And I mentioned that a challenge is the lack of sometimes technical capacities within the countries. So capacity building becomes a very important aspect to ensure that countries can really harness the opportunities that are presented in the carbon markets. We also see the opportunity, of course, here for knowledge sharing among the different countries on how they can progress towards harnessing the opportunities in the sense that being at different levels of engagement in Article 6, they can learn from those who have gone ahead, like Senegal and Ghana, in setting up their frameworks and how much more they can do to engage in the article, in the carbon markets. So this is just a brief overview of what happens in the Western African Alliance and some of the wider opportunities that one can see for Africa in general in the carbon markets, primarily under Article 6, is that they have now, having the activity types, for instance, that I mentioned in West Africa, they have an understanding of what activities exist in their portfolios. There's still high potential for them to ensure that they take up activities from which they can, what we call the high-hanging fruits, from which they can really get better market prices, as well as promote certain things that can contribute to sustainable development. Here, Africa has been very instrumental within the carbon markets in bringing forward the issues of programmatic approaches under the CDM. And programmatic approaches can allow for the scaling up of activities, that really can promote things like energy access. E-mobility can be a good example of an activity from which they can really harness from which they can really get high emission reductions, as well as move forward with electrification for the countries and not just a focus on lighting as was in the past.
Focus and thank you, Cherry and Pedro for a great presentation. My name is Guðmundur from the International Carbon Registry. We were founded in 2020, 2021 more or less. We operate a greenhouse gas program that is in the voluntary carbon markets that is born out of the mechanism from the clean development mechanism. Yes. So a little bit about myself. I founded the Azure. I'm also a fellow at the Blockchain and Climate Institute. I recently joined as the chair of a sectoral committee under Icelandic standards discussing environmental and climate-related issues, such as that will appear under Article 6.2, essentially. Then I'm a board member of the Forest Carbon Code. It's a forestation program operated out of Iceland, and in the past I worked on a standardization of carbon offsetting claims in Iceland, and also was working with perspectives in a Nordic dialogue on voluntary compensation. So we have roughly 90 projects in the pipeline, 90 climate projects in the pipeline that are being registered in the voluntary space. 26 countries. We are working with 15 validation verification bodies that have the necessary accreditation. We, through our registry platform, is allowing for integrations with different marketplaces, so project components or developers can easily get their credits to the market. Yes. Yeah, and it's important for climate action is to showcase what's happening on ground. So we have also on the registry platform a it's a social platform as well, where the developers and project proponents that are doing things on the ground, they can share what's really happening. So what I wanted to do here today is just to put into perspective the projects like we've been discussing about all these negotiations, Article 6, 6.2 to 6.4, but what do you really need to do when you are creating a project? You have a project idea and you want to get it finally to market. So, and this is essentially a flowchart that outlines the steps that are involved in creating a climate project, intended to go into either voluntary carbon market, and with slight modifications, adjustments, describes as well what's needed to go under the previous CDM, 6.2 or 6.4. So it all starts with like a concept or a project idea, and often the project idea comes from like business, not business as usual, but like methodologies or practices that are known. So when you are creating like a concept, you establish either a concept or just go straight through application of methodologies. And that methodologies come primarily from the old CDM, where I think there were almost 200 methodologies developed under the CDM, and most of the voluntary carbon standards are approving those methodologies and relying on them. And all the tools that have been developed by CDM, they are applied in the voluntary space. So, and then of course programs like Gold Standard, WERA, and ourselves, we then not have the methodology development framework. But essentially, a methodology is just to is for creating consistency in comparing project A to project B. So, with a methodology, you should be able to guarantee that project A is comparable to project B. So, but when you're on a block, and this is one of the reasons that we established last year, when you're on the block with a new methodology, then you need to develop a new methodology. So that's a process that needs to adhere to the principles from CDM, from the principles that you can also find under standardized approach from the International Standardization Organization, under a standard called ISO 14064-2, which is based on the same principles as the CDM and now 6.4 and 6.2. So when you have then created the methodology, it needs to go through validation of the methodology that is assessing how this control meets environmental integrity, meets the requirements that are set up that are either in the CDM or C6.4, maybe discussed later what will be happening on 6.2. And then you apply that methodology or a previous methodology at the project level. So then you document the project, you demonstrate how that is conforming to the requirements, and then assign a validation and verification plan. So in order to safeguard impartiality, trustworthiness, there is this trust check that is that there is a standard. There are validation and verification bodies that conduct the assessment of each project. And those VVBs that we call them, they adhere to accreditation. And accreditation comes from an accreditation body, either from the CDM or a national accreditation body. So intended to create consistency in the validation and verification procedures. So when you have validated the project, you can register the project in a registry, Gold Standard, Azure, CDM 6.4. Operate the project, you monitor the impacts of the project, you monitor the impacts, and you do that according to the monitoring plan that is incorporated in the project description. Then for each year or within the monitoring period that can range from maybe sometimes it's longer, 5 years, depending on the different solution. Then you have to verify and say for different validation verification by assessing that monitoring to the requirements, and that gives you the emission reductions or removes that the project has promised or estimated that they have will deliver in the future, providing an actual post assessment of the impacts. So then this is a procedure that continues throughout the crediting period. Its ranges now under I think most of the standards are aligned to 6.4 requirements on crediting period. This is 5 years for reduction project, renewable twice, or 15 years renewable twice for renewable projects. So a little bit about we didn't have to worry about anything related to corresponding adjustment during the Kyoto period. But now under the Paris era, we need to consider like the impacts of project that comes from a host country in terms of any international transfer outside the country. So then we have like 4 different types of carbon credits. So there are carbon credit, or I describe it as a carbon credit, but it may be a project. So if there's a carbon credit that has a corresponding adjustment mechanism attached to it, and then you have like demonstrated here. So that's a carbon credit that is created under the framework of Article 6.2 or 6.4, where it's transferred and the host country needs to do a corresponding adjustment for the reduction of emissions. Then we have how the voluntary carbon markets play a role in this, and I've been trying to be following up on a negotiation on like the finalization of the Article 6.2, how that will affect the voluntary carbon registers. So, but Corsia and other frameworks that have implemented the corresponding host countries' authorization into their procedures, they can participate in programs like Corsia, or when nations like organizations, corporates, are increasing their ambition and want to their effort to come to the host their country of domicile. And then we have the non-corresponding adjustment credits that are when you have a credit that is not included in the inventory of the nation, such as blue carbon. So that is like an increased ambition, so you are supporting a project that is additional to all the NDCs. And then the final one, when you are the old-fashioned carbon markets, where you work just with environmental credit, supporting climate action in the host country. So to summarize this, so this how voluntary carbon markets, and this also relates into 6.4 and 6.2, like it relies on trust. So this is what we call transparency plans. So relates into the accountability. So we have a standard that sets the rules. We have that. There we have 6.4, 6.2. You have international standardization organization, and then you have the greenhouse gas programs. Then you have the validation verification bodies that conducting the assessment on conformity, and then you have the validation of that, like the accreditation body that are members of the international accreditation forum that are guaranteeing the consistency in everything. And then recently, like with rating agencies that are rating the quality of the project. And more recently, we are seeing like insurance companies that are coming into the space. It comes with a little bit of a different angle to the space, as they are ensuring the accountability of the projects coming into it.
Thank you very much for each valuable and fruitful discussion so far. And we are slowly coming to the last 10 minutes of our discussion, our side event in Namibia Pavilion. First, I would like to leave the floor to the audiences, respectful audiences and participants. Please let us know if you have any questions to our speakers or any discussions they had circulated so far. You can also, bring your thoughts on the table. You are more than welcome to raise opinions as well in this respect. So let's try to make this last 10 minutes as much interactive as possible. We can start if anyone from the audience side would like to, raise a query or
So my question would be for you. I'm just wondering, is there what types of projects are these countries looking to attract? And is there like a theme that you see developing in that? Is it more about what types of projects and what they are looking for to bring in?
Depending on the region, there are various opportunities and options for them to consider. We are seeing a propping up of, as I said, like projects related to e-mobility where they can attract very high prices. So that's one of the key driving factors for country considerations. A few countries are also looking at what's typically being avoided now are projects related to the nature-based solutions of the developing integrity issues. And yeah, I'd say those are kind of the key considerations.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes. You may come to stage, by the way, more than welcome.
Thank you. I'm Isi Suleiman. I'm from Ghana. So I was so happy to hear that. But my question is, it's a bit puzzling, especially when it comes to the carbon market. And we are yet to see exactly what is going on. So my question is, with your experience, how long does it take a country to say that I am there and I'll start getting the benefits of this part of the carbon market? Then number two, can you tell me, since you started, how many West African countries and how many projects so far that you can say this one there is ongoing? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Sherry.
Maybe if I could start with the second question, how many projects can we save here and there? I think there's really no overarching answer to that, and maybe I would like to also invite my colleague who's been working on the carbon markets for the past 10 years to just help us give the overall picture of the carbon market situation. Going to Stefan.
So maybe just to address the point about how long, right? I mean, like, I think this is also depends on the countries and their capability to move forward in this process quickly. For example, in the case of Ghana, last COP we saw like the authorization, the first ETMOS authorizations between Ghana and Switzerland, but we know that this announcement, and then there is all the bureaucratic procedure to actually this become reality. So this is a bit more challenging to see when it will happen, but thinking about demand drivers, I would say that we have two key demand drivers, at least for now. One is like, of course, like the first NDC period, which will be until 2030. So we expect that closer to this date, we will have more investments into Article 6 projects, and for sure, like, we expect to see the co-benefits of these projects more clearly. And when it comes to the second aspect that I would like to highlight is COSIA, which we will have like the first compliance period like in 2028, and countries will need to authorize because we will not have enough technologies to compensate all the emissions of the sector. So this, I would say, would be my two highlights here.
So I just want to add one more thing to two more things. So it's in Ghana. Like what they need to do there is to create the accounting framework. So what methodologies, how the validation and verifications are going to be conducted, and all the requirements from the 6.2 rule 1.6.2. Some elements are still being, like I said before, being discussed and decided. But from the voluntary side, so the framework under the voluntary standard is there. So it's been operating for many years now. So the procedures are in place. But like, it's really difficult to say that from when you start a project until you have completed a project. That can be really long time. And especially when the corporate market has been working, that it's like supposed to work in where you get the carbon credits after the fact, after the verification. So, like, in that sense, when you're selling the credits, it's exposed. But of course, like with financing, like you of course have often financed the project prior to any implementation, with a bilateral agreement between two nations or an organization or a corporate that wants to engage in a project activity. So, no answer, but it can be long, and yeah, I hope it makes sense.
Thank you. I mean, priorities with audience. Yes, another question there. Let's see. We are in the last 2 minutes of our discussion, so it could be the last question. Yeah.
Just a quick one. Perhaps if you could just elaborate a little bit in terms of what would be the insurance requirements in this kind of new industry.
Any unique one?
So this is really new, and there are two. So we have been discussing hearing like two types of insurance. It's a delivery risk of the carbon credit, and then to ensure the buffer accounts which are coming from the nature-based sources like that have a permanent sources. So I haven't seen a term sheet for an insurance, but they would always be insuring either the delivery and or the reversal event. The previous one, the first one is more simple because then you would need. The insurance company would of course need to know the price that the credit would be and was traded for. But the buffer is more complicated.
Maybe as an addition, there is a new product that will be, I think, aired by MIGA, by World Bank, that will be based on, giving or assuring the insurance aspect of carbon contracts as part of Article 6, mobilization. Maybe you can check this as a further reference. Please let us know if any of us would like to comment on the same. But I think it's a little bit deep issue to address as part of this kind of short discussion. I think we should, stick to time that has been agreed by all parties. I would like to first thank, give my gratitude to our audiences. We have been filling the whole room, and in parallel to this, of course, to our speakers. Without you, we couldn't have this chance to circulate discussion around carbon market readiness in Africa. Thank you very much once again. So climate balance has been operating in last four COP summits and as this year. I hope that we will be, having another discussion in COP29 that will be announced very soon, I guess. Thank you very much.
Guys. Ah, it's going. Much as not disappointed.